aboard the Inland Empire Express. 10:50 a.m., leaving no listeners behind. KCAA.
Ladies and gentlemen, he's a child of God, a husband, NRA conservative, radical right-wing supervillain, and Twitter rock star. American by birth, Texan by choice, and a badass by nature. He's the owner of TomO'Halloran.com, O'HalloranMedia.com, and PatriotRadio.net. Please welcome Tom O'Halloran.
There ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
And welcome back. Welcome to Patriot Radio with Tom O'Halloran. I am your host, Tom O'Halloran, broadcasting tonight from an underground bunker deep in Arcantana, Brascarado, to educate, irritate, and agitate. And Patriots, if you're not agitated by the time this hour's over, you just need to crank up the volume because you're just not hearing me. Tonight we're going to cover a number of stories that are on the news wires in the blogosphere. You're not hearing about them from the mainstream media, but that's what I'm here for. If you'd like to join the conversation tonight, please call in at 888-909-1050. If you'd like to listen on your phone, call 832-999-1050. You can also listen live stream on your radio on your computer at patriotradioshow.com. Again, my name is Tom O'Halloran. Follow me on Twitter. I'm TPO_hisself. My major blog is TomO'Halloran.com. When you get there, please follow me on Facebook, Spreaker, and any of the other social media tools that you enjoy. Also, please follow my editor, Veronica Coffin. Veronica does most of the heavy lifting on the website these days, and you'll find her button at the bottom of every post. I'm on air 3 nights a week, so please join me again tomorrow night for Patriot Radio at the same time, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And then on Fridays, I do a special show. It's called Jihad on America. This show will, on a weekly basis, cover the Islamists in America, who they are, what they want, and why you should be afraid. Each week we continue pulling back the mask of Islam as well. We look at what's being done in the name of Islam, both here and abroad. We do the news about Islam abroad because what's happening in Europe is a look into our future. If we don't wake up, it's going to happen here in the homeland. If you did not catch my show on the Muslim Brotherhood or the show Islam is Not a Religion, please do yourself a favor and go to PatriotRadioShow.com and watch them before this Friday's show. They will lay a great foundation for what we build on a weekly basis. Keep abreast of all of my shows, including the live stream and archives of anything you may have missed on PatriotRadioShow.com. And before we get started, I'd like to thank my sponsor, noted author and columnist for WorldNet Daily, Colin Flaherty. Colin is the author of White Girl Bleed a Lot, The Return of Racial Violence to America and How the Media Ignore It. Over 80 cities nationwide, over 300 incidents in the last couple of years. Black mobs swarming on single individuals, usually small Asians or little old ladies, trying to play the game, the knockout game, where they sneak up, they try to knock you out with a single punch. Some game, isn't it? The media refuses to report it as racial violence, even though there's 8 to 20 black youths and one helpless, defenseless, typically white, sometimes Asian female. Stand by. Later in the show, we're going to give away a copy of this fabulous book, so stay with us. Great news tonight. You've probably been hearing on the news over the last several months that the Tea Party is dead. Tea Party is dying. It's lost its influence. Well, guess what? The majority leader, Eric Cantor, Republican, Virginia, just got his clock cleaned. He got his butt kicked. He won his last GOP primary with 78% of the vote. Tonight, a Tea Party candidate, David Bratt, takes 55% to Eric Cantor's 44%. This is what happens when you say you want to see immigration reform. There's only one reform this country needs, and that's to obey the rule of the land. Eric Holder has to start enforcing the law, not locking these people up in gymnasiums or on army bases and then releasing them with food stamps, medical stamps, food stamps, school vouchers, and everything else. Illegal aliens are illegal because they've broken the law. There's not a country in this world that would allow them in and feed them and clothe them and give them school and benefits. Instead, it's happening just the opposite here. Just the opposite. It gets worse every day. You can't even, I like to write satire, folks, but even I can't make this stuff up. Eric Holder is now funding attorneys to help illegal aliens. In Texas, they're being overrun with illegal aliens. More than 47,000 unaccompanied minors. These are just kids coming across alone without their parents. Unaccompanied minors have been caught in the last 5 months of this year. Just the last 5 months. 47,000 of them. That's a 92% increase over the same time in 2004. Now, some of them are being put up in gymnasiums. Thousands of them are being shipped into Arizona as a payback for the crackdown on illegals by Governor Jan Brewer and Sheriff Arpaio. Obama is working with foreign governments such as El Salvador and Honduras, urging women and children to make the grueling trek across the U.S. border because Obama will never deport them. He knows these people would typically vote for the Democrats. And by swelling the illegal ranks in the U.S., he can assure Democrat rule, and that's what it is these days. It's rule. It's not leadership. It's rule. They are ruling America. They can assure democratic rule for years and years to come. But the insanity of it, he is supposed to be our lawyer, the chief law enforcement officer in the United States of America, the head of the Department of Justice. Well, DOJ seems to stand for Department of Jihad on America because Eric Holder is using our tax dollars to provide illegal aliens with lawyers so that they can fight the federal government and the state governments to be able to stay here. We're spending the money twice. And he's also putting the illegal aliens on buses and shipping them to their families across the United States, wherever they be. This man is working against America. He is working against Americans. He is breaking the law. He has sworn to uphold and defend the Constitution. Meanwhile, it's probably lining his bird's cage. This man is probably the number one racist that has ever lived in America, second perhaps only to Obama, and right behind him are Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson. He refused to prosecute black-on-white crime. He refused to prosecute a case that had already been won under the Bush administration, where the new Black Panthers were intimidating white voters coming to the polls. You better vote for us, cracker. They were already found guilty. And Eric Holder dismissed the charges. And we wonder why America's in such a sad state. Over the last 12, 13 years, America's been on a massive decline. 2001, sex between an unmarried man and an unmarried woman, 53%. Today it's 66%. Divorces, 59%, up to 69%. Babies outside of marriage used to be 45%. Now it's 58%. It's getting worse and worse and worse. And the effect that all of these relaxes in the morals have on society is what's scary. 18% of all women in the United States say that they've been raped at some point in their lives. 18%. 1 out of every 4 girls will be sexually abused before they become adults. In the United States today, more than half the couples move in together before they get married. For women under the age of 30, more than half of all babies are going to be born out of wedlock. During 2012, more than 85,000 military veterans were formally treated for sexual abuse that they suffered while serving in the military. Sexual abuse in the United States military. And this is because of Obama's lax policies, his total lack of leadership, and is forcing the military to accept gays openly in the military as some kind of social experiment. Never before had we had anything close to the number of male rape victims in the military. That's not what these boys are joining for. Some would suggest that our nation is evolving, that we're becoming a more progressive society. Others are deeply alarmed that we're abandoning the values that this nation was founded upon, and we need to return. My friends, we've got some bills to pay. We don't play the bills, we pay them around here. Please stick with us. We got a great show, a lot of stuff coming up tonight. We'll be right back.
NBC News Radio.
The only station I listen to.
1050 AM.
Tom O'Halloran.
We'll put a boot in your ass. It's the American way. All brought to you courtesy of the red, white, and blue. Of my red, white, and blue.
And we're back. Thanks for sticking with us, my friends. We've got a whole lot of stuff going on today. I'm not going to cover the elections precinct by precinct or even state by state. We got a great win in Virginia by getting rid of Eric Cantor, who's pretty conservative on a lot of stuff. But, man, the immigration thing is just an issue you can't go soft on. And he's been bought off by major corporations because they want the cheap labor in the country. The liberals, all the way up to and including George Soros, want the illegals in here just to get the Democratic votes. And Eric Cantor just made the call that he's more important. It's more important for him to get elected again than it is to take care of the people he was elected to serve. So good riddance, Mr. Cantor. Welcome, David Bratt. We're getting wins all across the country. Not every race, but doggone it, we don't expect every race. The Tea Party is alive and kicking some serious butt. Okay, a serious committee, the Citizens Commission on Benghazi, was set up in September of last year to investigate the causes and circumstances in the attacks on the consulate and CIA annex in Benghazi. It was a great article written by Frank de Verona. And among this commission's members were Brigadier General Charles Jones, General Thomas McInerney, former CIA officer Claire Lopez, several other former CIA officers, General Paul Vallely, Congressman and Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, a couple of SEAL team members, and the Undersecretary of Defense for Information Technology and Security. So it's a well-rounded team. It isn't a Republican or Democrat team. They're Americans that want to find out what happened. We haven't been getting the truth from the administration, so they're digging in. And after many months of investigation and research, which involved interviews with several knowledgeable sources, the committee issued a report on the Benghazi situation on April 22nd. The interim report was titled, How America Switched Sides in the War on Terror. Now let that one sink in, my friends. How America switched sides in the war on terror. I mentioned this last week. I said we've always been on the side of the good. We've made some bad calls. We've backed some people that turned bad later on and so forth and so on. We've stuck our nose in places where we shouldn't. But we've never sided with evil. We've never sided with the bad guy while they're bad guys. We've done it this time. So a summary of the alarming findings. The war in Libya was unnecessary and served no articulate U.S. national security objective and led to preventable chaos region-wide. In the period since 2011, the revolution in Libya and the country has remained fragmented, poorly governed, and overrun with violent militias, the majority of which are jihadist al-Qaeda. Yet at the time of the overthrow, Muammar Gaddafi was an ally of the United States in the global war on terror. So we're trying to fight the terrorists. And what does Obama do? He sides with the terrorists to drive from office a man who's keeping peace in his country and helping us get rid of the terrorists. Are you seeing this now? On March 17th, 2011, the United Nations Security Council passed Resolution 1973 for a no-fly zone, ostensibly to protect Libyan civilians caught up in the hostilities from the government. But the very next day, in London, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton announced the U.S. government support for the Muslim Brotherhood-led Libyan Transnational Council in its revolt against al-Qaeda. So it was official. Hillary Clinton said that we're going to support the Muslim Brotherhood. These are known terrorists. Mubarak knew it when he was the leader of Egypt for 4 decades. He wouldn't let them hold a monthly meeting, let alone build coalitions and rallies and grow a base in Egypt. The Muslim Brotherhood are terrorists. We know it from their own documents, where we've intercepted their documents that state what their goal is, and that is to roll out Sharia, an Islamic worldwide, and they're in the process of doing it. They're doing it here in our country. We talk about this on a regular basis on Friday nights. On March 20th, 2011, General Abdul Khair Youssef Debris, the head of personal security for Gaddafi, contacted Rear Admiral Chuck Kubik, who passed the information up the chain of command, a couple of more links, till it got to the head of AFRICOM, General Carter Ham. He told the general that the Libyan dictator was ready to establish communications with the Africa Command, and General Ham was quite pleased. He was interested, and he passed the information up the line further and found out that the Obama administration would not give permission for the general to proceed with the negotiations. So Obama has stated that Gaddafi has got to go. We've armed the Muslim Brotherhood-backed people on the street to get him out of there. Now Gaddafi's wanting to negotiate, open negotiations about how he can get out with his life, and Obama's not interested. The opportunity for a peaceful resolution of the conflict in Libya did not interest President Obama. The war continued, and tens of thousands of lives were lost. It was absolutely appalling that the White House and the State Department did not even consider entering into negotiations with Gaddafi to avoid the bloodshed. It says President Obama and Secretary Clinton wanted to pursue the unconstitutional war in Libya, supporting the Muslim Brotherhood and al-Qaeda-linked rebels. So Obama and Hillary Clinton wouldn't let a negotiation happen because then it would be a peaceful turnover. He didn't want that for his own evil, malicious ways. He wanted a bloody war. He wanted the country to be taken. So tens of thousands of people had to lose their lives. Utter chaos, disruption of Libya's oil industry, and widespread distribution of dangerous weapons, including surface-to-air missiles, and the empowerment of jihadist organizations like al-Qaeda and the Muslim Brotherhood. Weapons flow. An American citizen source trusted by the Commission on Benghazi, who has long been involved in the Middle East, described how the flow of weapons from Qatar to the Libyan rebels and the diversion of some of those arms. During a visit to Tripoli, the United Arab Emirates officials discovered that half of the $1 billion worth of weapons that it financed for the rebels had, in fact, been diverted by the Muslim Brotherhood and sold to Gaddafi. So now, Qatar is supplying $500 million worth of weapons to the Muslim Brotherhood, who turns around and sells some of them, about half of them, to the very people that they're fighting with to overturn. So they're getting weapons from the Qatar government, and they're getting the money from the Gaddafi. And Obama's up to his neck in it. There's no question, states the author of the report, Frank de Verona, there's no question in my mind that President Obama committed treason, dereliction of duty, and criminal negligence in Libya during the civil war against Gaddafi, and for his refusal to save our diplomats and Navy SEALs in Benghazi. Hillary Clinton is also guilty of treason, criminal negligence, since she supported assisting the Muslim Brotherhood and jihadists to overthrow Gaddafi. And later, her State Department denied repeated requests from Ambassador Chris Stevens for protection and for her lies and participation in the cover-up. These two people should both be pulled from office and strung up, if you ask me. Meanwhile, across the border in Syria, thousands of Christians have become refugees. More than 60 churches have been destroyed in Syria by Obama's Al-Qaeda and Muslim Brotherhood compadres, by the very people that he's been giving money and weapons to. He's giving money and weapons to the Islamists that want to kill Christians. And they're doing what? Oh, they're killing Christians. Wake up, America. My friends on the left, Islam is out to kill Christians and gays. Don't fall for this multicultural crap. They're evil. We have to deal with it, and deal with it now. My friends, we have some more bills to pay. Stick with us. We've got a book to give away as soon as we come back.
.1050 AM, KCAA, NBC News Talk Radio.
Tom O'Halloran, holding the line against tyranny from Washington, D.C.
I am America. One voice, united we stand. I am America. One hope to heal our land. There is still work
Welcome back.
must be done. I will not rest until
Welcome back, and thank you for sticking around. This is Patriot Radio, and I am your host, Tom O'Halloran. Earlier in the show, I mentioned the election in Virginia. One thing I didn't put out there, which I do want to put out because I think it's highly relevant. Eric Cantor, the incumbent, was the second most powerful Republican, and he lost his last race. He won by 77%. This time he got 44% and lost to a Tea Party candidate. But what's really breathtaking in the whole scope of this is the new guy had about $200,000 to his name. Eric Cantor spent over $5 million. He outspent the Tea Party candidate 20-1, but he supported illegal alien amnesty. It's not a good plan, friends. The Tea Party is alive and well and kicking some major butt. Okay, we've got a book to give away. I thank you for sticking around. Colin Flaherty's White Girl Bleed a Lot, The Return of Racial Violence to America and How the Media Ignore It. Well, they ignore it by calling it teen mischief, just a bunch of rowdy youths, just totally ignoring the fact that there were 12 to 20 black teens beating up on an 80-year-old woman. Time after time after time. It's a great book. There's almost 400 pages. It's story after story after story. Colin Flaherty doesn't put a narrative in it. He doesn't tell you why they do it because, single dads. They do it because they hadn't had school. They do it. No, none of that. All he does is he gives you the facts. And most of the stories in the book have a QR code where you can scan it with your smartphone, and it will take you to a movie on YouTube, a video, and you can see, if not the actual act of violence themselves than at least the media coverage thereof. And you can see how they cover up what was really happening. So I want to give away a copy. I'll give away a book to the first caller at 888-909-1050. So much of my show is depressing. All the stuff that's happening in America, happening around the world, it feels good to finally trip across a story that kind of gives you hope. And that happened today. And out of the strangest of places, I never would have expected this out of California because I've pretty much written them off. I was ready to give it back to Mexico if they take it. But a huge, huge, huge loss for the teachers' unions in California. As you know, it's been virtually impossible to fire teachers, no matter how inept they are. One of the New York school districts has some 60 teachers that go to work and sit in a room and just read, or they play chess or do whatever because they've been accused of molesting students, sexual misconduct. But they can't even fire them because they don't have proof of the act. But the union says you can't fire them. So they're drawing full salaries. They have to come to work, but they can do whatever they want to do while they're at work. They can work on an online business or whatever. The unions are just horrible. They make promotion after promotion. They make this. The districts put in tons of money for the teachers' retirements. Meanwhile, we spend more on our children's education than any other country. And we're so far down the list on our educational results, it'll make you cry. But a ruling in California on Tuesday, striking down job protections for teachers in California, deals a sharp blow to unions and likely will fuel political movements across the nation to eliminate teacher tenure. Los Angeles Superior Court Judge Rolf M. Theroux found 5 California laws governing the hiring and firing of teachers unconstitutional. But it was his language more than the ruling itself that will shake the political debate. Theroux found that the statutes permit too many grossly incompetent teachers to remain in classrooms across the state. Praise God. And found those teachers shortchange their students by putting them months or years behind their peers in math and reading. He ruled that such a system violates the state constitution's guarantee that all children receive basic equality of educational opportunity. In a blunt, unsparing 16-page opinion, he compared his ruling to the seminal federal deregulation case in Brown versus the Board of Education, decided over 60 years ago last month. The evidence is compelling indeed, and it shocks the conscience. This is phenomenal news. If you've got kids, or if you have grandkids, or if you have neighbors that have kids, or if you just want to know that the future of America will not be a bunch of ignoramuses, this is phenomenal news. The reformers across the country plan to take this fight elsewhere. They're considering similar lawsuits in Connecticut, New Jersey, New Mexico, Oregon, virtually everywhere. It's going to go on for a lot of years. And hopefully with similar results. I never would have expected a judge in California to make that ruling. God bless you, Judge. Okay, enough of the good news. Obama, once again, Obama wanted out of Iraq so bad, he drew a date well in advance, and he just says, we're leaving. He says, oh, yeah, Iraq is capable of defending for themselves. They can handle it. And we rolled out of the country to a man. On Tuesday, militants seized the airport of Mosul. Mosul is about 350 miles north of the capital. And the militants, primarily Al-Qaeda and ISIS. ISIS is the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria. It's an Al-Qaeda splinter group. They rolled into the city 300 miles north of Baghdad, and they took over. Within the city, militants managed to take control of security checkpoints, military bases, a prison where they freed up to 1,000 prisoners. A Reuters journalist on the ground in Mosul reported seeing policemen take off their uniforms and drop their weapons. The bodies of Iraqi security forces, some mutilated, littered the streets. We can't beat them. We can't. They're well organized and trained in street fighting, and we're not. We needed a whole army to drive them out, one officer claimed. We left them not ready. We knew they weren't ready. Anybody with half a brain knew they weren't ready. They hadn't been tested or drilled on being ready. But Obama wanted out. He wanted to be the leader that ruled, that led us out and stopped a war. You don't stop a war by walking away from it. The war against the terrorists is not over until the terrorists lay down their weapons. It's not when you, fighting the terrorists, lay down your weapons. And I've said this in show after show after show. Obama is a coward. Obama thinks that you can negotiate with people that want to behead people for being gay. He thinks you can negotiate with people that chop your hand off for stealing an apple. He thinks you can negotiate with people who want you to stone your wife for showing her ankles in public. These people you don't negotiate with. Yet after a brief lull of peace, the bloodshed picked up. The United Nations has said that 2013 was the deadliest year since 2008. With more than 8,000 people killed, most of them civilians. Nearly 500,000 people were estimated to have been displaced in this fighting. ISIS has expanded its reach, wresting control of Iraq cities like Fallujah and parts of Ramadi, as well as Syrian towns just over the border. It's considered too radical for even Al-Qaeda in the past months. But ISIS, bringing together Islamists from Syria and from other countries in the region, have pulled together. Mosul has made them the single most dangerous, destabilizing radical force in the region, something like al-Malaki's government seems ill-equipped to deal with. The fall of Mosul, predominantly Sunni city with a population of about 1.5 million people. Mosul has made ISIS the most dangerous force to deal with. They're almost brand new. They've been around for a couple of years. And they've been building year after year while Obama tells us that Al-Qaeda has been decimated, cut off at the head. They're not cut off. They change a name, they start a splinter group, and they keep building. And there's no way that they didn't know it. Obama had to know it, as he knew about Boko Haram, but refused to acknowledge them as terrorists because they didn't do everything that a terrorist does. There was one little checkbox they may not have done. And then the Iraqi army walks away. They're probably just days, weeks at the most, from walking into Baghdad and taking that over. And then the entire country of Iraq will have fallen to Al-Qaeda, a country that we've given 4,000 American lives to defend and protect. So stay with us, my friends. We've got one more segment coming up, and we got a whole lot of news to put into it. So stick around, and we'll be right back.
NBC Talk Radio, 1050 AM, KCAA.
Tom O'Halloran has a not-so-common core spelling lesson for the Obama administration. Ready? There is no K in America.
There's kids that can't pray in school, $100 tanks of gas. I can tell you right now, this country ain't supposed to be like that. No, that ain't my America. That ain't this country's roots. You wanna slam, hold on to Sam, but I ain't letting you. Yeah, I'm mad as hell, and you know I still bleed red, white, and blue. They ain't us, and that ain't
Welcome back.
America. Oh no, that ain't my America.
Welcome back, and thank you for sticking around. I really appreciate you staying with me night after night. I know there's a lot of options out there, so thank you from the bottom of my heart. Here's an article that came across the wires out of Bellingham, Washington. This ought to get the hair on the back of your neck standing up. Teacher Terry Grimes gave sex toys to the male teen that won Horniest Stud, and the same toys to the girl who won Horniest Girl. But it was an anti-Catholic skit that was the last straw for the mother that reported the incident. The teacher tells a joke about a plane going down, and there was a lawyer and a priest on the plane, and there were jokes about having sex with kids. Stunning. Giving away sex toys to kids in high school. And we wonder why the morals of American youth are in the toilet. It's heartbreaking. Unfortunately, the teacher's 3 weeks from retiring, so there's no way in the world that she'll ever be punished. Probably a week's suspension and back on. Interesting comment made by Obama, King Obama, during an interview with NBC's Brian Williams. Brian Williams had asked why Obama didn't get the consent of Congress to release those 5 terrorists for the Bergdahl exchange. Obama made the comment, "It was a unanimous decision by my government. I make no apologies." What the heck? Obama has a government? He thinks he's a king. He's made the comment, "I'm going to send my army in there." He doesn't have an army. He's a servant of the people. The army is ours. The government is ours. The White House is ours. And it's high time Congress realize that and impeach the SOB. Oh, man, oh, man. Every week you think you just have about all they can do to come up with it, and the administration comes up with something that just tops it. Now, court has ordered the National Security Administration, yes, guys, I know you're listening to me. The court has ordered the NSA to comply with its order. First it issues an order, then it orders them to comply with the order, to maintain all the evidence. They're told that they're supposed to keep the data, keep the relevant evidence of what they're doing. In other words, you can't spy on Tom O'Halloran and then delete the records that showed you spied on him. If you're going to do the act, you need to keep the records of the act. Well, the NSA says that it is too large and too complex to comply with the court order. We're too big to obey the law, is what they're saying. This sounds eerily like, "I'm sorry, Hal, I cannot do this." We have an agency that is there to serve the people, and it is telling the government, "We're too big for you to control. We'll do what we want to do." This is frightening. The head of the NSA needs to be locked in a deep holding cell somewhere, and the agency needs to be broken up into much smaller, much more easily controlled divisions. Anytime any organization is too big for Congress to look over and monitor and manage, then it's time to take a chainsaw and dismantle what can't be managed. We talked earlier about illegals coming over by the tens of thousands from not just Mexico. This is a campaign, and it's obvious that the administration has been orchestrating this, because we have people coming up from Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, and just tons of children. They're being put on buses and trains and coming in by the thousands. And they're using the word, what is the word? Amnesty. Obama has been telling the leaders in these other countries, send your people up. We'll feed them, we'll clothe them, we'll give them schooling, and we'll make them Americans. Well, they're all being put up in great big, basically, warehouses. And it turns out these jam-packed holding centers are now rampant with diseases and sexually active teenagers in Nogales, New Mexico. Tucson sector has the same types of issues. Too many kids for them to take care of. They don't have the staffing for it. They're being put on buses and shipped across the country to the relatives that they're coming up to be joined with. They'll still be processed for deportation. But we know how that goes. The family is undocumented. They're here illegally anyway, so they just pick up, move to another city, and nobody knows who they are or where they're from. Meanwhile, the Democrats in the Senate are trying to push forth a constitutional amendment. They don't like the fact that companies can give as much money as they want to political candidates. Of course, they've always liked that the unions can because they traditionally give money to the Democrats. So the unions and people like George Soros, who doesn't give it so much personally, but he sets up these nonprofit agencies and stuff and gives hundreds of millions of dollars through those. That's fine. We've no problem with that. But the Democrats in the Congress want to stop corporate, the people that make things, the people that pay taxes, the people that pay their own salary. We need to limit what they give toward political candidates. Well, the problem is if you can say that you can only give $1,000, then you can say you can only give $100. What they're trying to do is to make it so that almost no money gets raised for political candidates by companies. That will ensure the incumbents. Democrats can stay in office forever. This will never get off the ground. The First Amendment has never been, and this does fall under the First Amendment, it's your right to free political speech. What you give states your voice. And the First Amendment has never been amended. In fact, part of the First Amendment states no law shall be enacted that infringes on the freedom of speech. Oh man, oh man, oh man. Bergdahl. This is one for the books. Don't close the books on the Bergdahl /Taliban release. We traded 5 top-level Taliban commanders for one scumbag that deserted America and caused 6 other good American soldiers to get killed. But it turns out there's more to it than that. My friend Lachlan Markay wrote a column on it. The numbers don't add up. When we speak of the Taliban, we speak in general terms. But what happened here is the Haqqani network was holding Bergdahl. The Haqqanis are not the Taliban. So it's important to understand that Haqqanis are not the Talibans. So why would the Haqqanis give up Bergdahl in exchange for 5 Talibans? It doesn't make any sense at all. So there has been money transferring hands. That is an almost absolute definite thing. Because them giving up Bergdahl, Haqqani giving up Bergdahl for the Taliban's people would be like the Redskins paying for a draft pick that goes to Miami Dolphins. They're not going to do it. If you put a Haqqani terrorist in a room with 5 Talibans, they'd beat the crap out of him. They'd probably kill him. So something doesn't add up. The numbers stink. Whether the Qataris pay it or some big oil sheik, somebody paid somebody some serious money, probably to the tune of $6,000 a head for the released people. And Obama just swept them all into the pool as an excuse to release the people that he wanted to release anyway. Bergdahl was just his pawn. Obama wanted to release the Taliban to go back and fight because those are his people, the Al-Qaeda type people, the people that he's arming and giving weapons to, the people that are killing your sons and your brothers. Obama's releasing. That's his plan. So there's an awful lot of bad stuff out there. I'd like to thank my engineer tonight, Mia Mocha. I really appreciate her help. People, it's not too late to turn a country back around, get her back on track. But at this point in the fight, you're either helping or you're part of the problem. It's time to take the gloves off and fight for what you believe in. There's a lot of people out there intent on destroying America, and either we engage the enemy now or accept that we're going to be turning a much weaker America over to our children. Good night, America. God bless you and yours. This is Tom O'Halloran. I'm out.